Why do men die on average about 6 years earlier than women? That question caught my attention too. I found it fascinating, so I did some deep research on the topic, and the things I discovered were honestly shocking. There are several theories out there. One explanation is that men usually take on jobs that come with a lot of occupational hazards, tough physical work, and higher risk. Another is that men tend to visit doctors far less often, so their health issues go unchecked for longer. Men also smoke more frequently, which contributes to higher rates of heart attacks and strokes. Those things are fairly obvious, but then you have women who suffer from more autoimmune diseases, conditions that can be chronic and very difficult to manage. Yet despite being common in women, autoimmune conditions are not a leading cause of death. So the question remains, why do women live longer? The answer lies in a very specific gene, often called the longevity gene. Its scientific name is FOXO3. This gene helps extend lifespan, and in women it tends to be far more active. Why is that? Because women produce estrogen, and estrogen is one of the hormones that triggers this gene to switch on. But estrogen isn't the only thing that activates it. There are other ways this gene can be turned on, and today I'm going to explain what those are. Personally, I found this so interesting because it made me curious about what really allows people to live longer. I wanted to understand how we can actually increase our lifespan and give ourselves a better chance at staying healthy for many more years. In certain cultures around the world, this longevity gene is expressed at even higher levels than usual. You see this in Okinawa, Japan, or Sardinia, Italy, where people commonly live to be over 100 years old. So what exactly does this gene do for us? It offers protection against cancer. It helps repair damaged DNA, it builds resistance against stress, and it gives the body the ability to adapt to changing conditions and environments. But why is this gene more strongly expressed in women? The answer has a lot to do with reproduction and fertility. Nature has designed the female body with an extra layer of protection because of the critical role women play in giving life. So their systems have evolved to keep them alive longer, even in difficult conditions, through the creation and activation of survival genes like this one. That's the big picture. But the real question for us is, how can we activate this gene ourselves? Because whether you're a man or a woman, you can benefit from turning this gene on. I've put together a list of factors that increase the activity of FOXO3 and a list of things that suppress it, and I'm going to share both with you. The first group involves natural compounds called phytonutrients. The first one is astaxanthin. Now that word sounds strange, but here's what it is. Astaxanthin is the red-orange pigment you find in certain fish, especially fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, trout, and even in shrimp. It's actually the most powerful antioxidant in the world. To give you some perspective, it's 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C and 100 times stronger than vitamin E. It protects your nervous system, your eyes, your skin, and your heart. The second compound is sulforaphane. This is found naturally in the leaves of some vegetables, such as cabbage, radish leaves, and turnip greens. The third compound is EGCG, short for epigallocatechin gallate, which you get from green tea. This antioxidant has a very long list of benefits. It improves blood sugar control, protects against cancer, fights inflammation, and supports overall health in countless ways. Another one is resveratrol, which also boosts longevity and directly triggers the FOXO3 gene. These compounds are some of the most powerful ways to increase your chances of living longer. But nutrients aren't the only way to trigger this gene. Another surprising factor is exposure to both cold and heat. Alternating between extreme cold and extreme heat activates the gene as well. That's why cold showers, saunas, cold therapy, and ice baths are so beneficial. This gene actually evolved long ago when humans had to survive extreme conditions, bitterly cold winters, and unbearably hot summers. To adapt and endure those extremes, our bodies developed protective genes like FOXO3, and those genes still protect us today. The next factor is intermittent fasting. Think of it as a modern controlled version of famine. When you look back at human history, hunger and famine were common challenges, and our bodies had to find ways to survive them. One of those survival mechanisms was the activation of genes like FOXO3. When we practice intermittent fasting today, even though it's voluntary, our bodies still respond by turning on this gene and strengthening our systems for survival. Another factor that might surprise you is sunlight. Ultraviolet radiation from the sun can also activate this longevity gene. Of course, this doesn't mean you should overexpose yourself and get burned, but spending too much time indoors and avoiding the sun altogether means you miss out on this natural benefit. A healthy balance of sunlight exposure can help activate the gene and support your overall well-being. Now, let's look at the things that suppress this gene and shorten lifespan. One of the most damaging is high insulin levels. People with type 2 diabetes experience constantly elevated insulin, and that directly slows down the FOXO3 gene, gradually shutting it off. The result is a shorter lifespan. Another suppressor is chronic stress. Notice that the keyword here is chronic. Occasional stress, like the kind you feel when facing a challenge or trying something new, can actually make the body stronger. But when stress is constant and never-ending, it shortens your life by shutting down the very systems designed to keep you alive. Overeating is another big one. Eating more than your body needs every single day prevents this gene from functioning properly and reduces longevity. Then there's EMF, or electromagnetic fields, the invisible radiation from cell phones, Wi-Fi, and electronic devices. These constant waves are always hitting your body, slowly causing harm over time. They also interfere with the expression of the longevity gene. Finally, you have endocrine disruptors, which are chemicals like pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, plastics, synthetic fertilizers, and even heavy metals like aluminum and mercury. These chemicals mimic estrogen in the body. The problem is that when they behave like estrogen, they block the real estrogen from activating the FOXO3 gene. This leads to hormonal imbalance and suppresses the very mechanism that supports longevity. It's dangerous because although your body has estrogen available, it can't reach the gene to activate it, thanks to these artificial disruptors. So now you understand why women usually live longer than men. Their natural estrogen activates this gene more strongly, giving them an advantage. But if you're a man, that doesn't mean you're doomed to live a shorter life. By applying the practices I just described, you can also activate this gene and increase your chances of living longer and healthier. Things like eating the right phytonutrients, practicing intermittent fasting, balancing cold and heat exposure, and spending time in the sun can all help. And of course, avoiding chronic stress, overeating, high insulin, EMFs, and endocrine disruptors is equally important. If you take these steps, you'll be giving your body the tools it needs to switch on its survival systems and protect your health for many years to come. That's all for today's video. I hope this gave you some real insight into why women outlive men, and more importantly, how men can close that gap. Take care of yourself, put this information into practice, and I'll see you in the next video.